Hello and welcome to Categories Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.categories.com. My name is Jason JROCK Houston, and our special guest today is Kevin Steele, singer from Roxx Gang. How you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing great.
Now I understand. I'm doing great, and I just remember back in the '90s, seeing your band Roxx Gang, in all those great ads and Metal Edge magazine, for Paris Records. So, I was so excited to hear that this album was being re-released. So let's start off there. Talk a little bit about why re-release this album and why now.
Honestly, you'd have to ask Paris Records. It came as a complete surprise to me, but I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
And I always thought Voodoo You Love was our best album, and if it gets into the hands of some more people, that would make me very happy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And again, Roxx Gang, I remember seeing all those great ads on Metal Edge magazine, and you guys were probably, Paris Records was huge back then. I mean, I used to order a ton of stuff, but you'd always see all the Roxx Gang releases and all those ads. So I was curious. I was reading, you guys were formed in 1982. Is that correct?
Yeah, around there.
And
it was 82.
And I always love to ask people. I mean, how did you come up with the name Roxx Gang? I mean, for what you guys were, it really kind of very very fitting. I think it was a cool name.
It goes back to when I was a kid in school, writing on my notebook, dreaming of the day when I would be in a band.
Yeah.
And at the time, one of my favorite bands was T-Rex, Mark Bolan and T-Rex.
Oh wow, yeah. I bet I could kind of see that. And that kind of reminds me. I've heard Joe Elliott of Def Leppard tell kind of that same story. That when he was very young, he always imagined having a band, Def Leppard, and kind of designing the logo. That's cool. So
one day I was writing T-Rex on my notebook.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of names for my, it was just a pipe dream in those days, but thinking about if I had a band, what I would call it.
Yeah.
And growing up on the R Gang, Little Rascals.
Oh, sure.
Comedy shorts. And I thought R Gang, and I could put R period gang, like T-Rex.
Yeah.
And then somehow, once I did get into some bands and never used that name, eventually one day when the lineup for Roxx Gang gelled, we were looking for a name, and I brought up our gang, and somehow it mutated into Roxx Gang.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I love that. I love that story. That's a great story right there. And I was curious. So, what was the point when you decided that I think I'll form my own band? Was it because you stated that you were obviously in other bands for Roxx Gang? Was it just a matter of kind of wanting to do your own thing, having a little more control?
Well, I started young, and I was always the youngest guy in my band, and eventually I teamed up with a guitar player named Eric Carroll, and we formed Roxx Gang. And I don't know. It wasn't a control thing so much. It was just a natural evolution of things. As I got older and my musical abilities matured, I did take more control. But
maybe control's the wrong word. Maybe more kind of you had more freedom, I guess, to kind of do your vision of what you had always dreamed of.
Well, I was, when I first started, of course, everybody starts singing cover songs and little B-bars and stuff, but I was never, that never did it for me. I was never satisfied singing other people's songs, and I'll be the first person to say, like, I'm not technically a great singer. Like, I don't have a large range, right? I can't hit those, nut squeezing high notes, right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessary in rock and roll. Some of my idols, some of the great rock singers and great, it's about attitude and personality.
I mean, look at David Lee Roth. I mean, technically, he's another one. He's not the world's greatest singer, but look at what he does. I mean, for David Lee Roth.
I take exception to that when people say he's not a great singer, because maybe he's not like a great singer in like a Steve Perry sense.
Sure.
But he's got a great voice. That voice is instantly identifiable. It's got this warm bluesy. I think he's got a great voice.
Well, I mean, I always loved his.
I see where people say he's not a great singer, but I think he has a great rock and roll voice.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, sure, put him up against somebody like David Gilmour or Robert Plant. But what I loved about Dave is he's got his own thing going, and what I really love is if you listen to those early Van Halen albums. I mean, a lot of the lyricals are kind of nonsensical, and you don't really know what he's even singing about, but it doesn't really matter just because it sounds so cool, It just.
Well, you never know. You never know. It might mean something there. I've always
sure.
been a fan of kind of like ambiguous lyrics, to where I like to write a song lyrics where it might mean one thing to one person, another thing to another.
I mean, it's
interpretation.
Exactly. And if you've ever heard the guy talk, he's got this podcast called The Roxx Show, and if you take the time to really listen to what he's saying, I mean, he's a very intelligent guy, and some people.
Oh yeah.
Some people don't.
I don't know how to respect. I think it's a shame.
Yeah.
David Lee Roth, at his prime, was probably the greatest frontman going. One of the greatest frontmen of all time, and the way they clown him now, it's despicable.
Oh, I totally agree, and getting back to Roxx Gang, like when you guys were first starting out, was there much of a rock scene there in Florida?
No, there was not. And my idol, it's weird. Being from Florida, my band was dirt poor, and we didn't have the money to move out to LA like a lot of bands, and therefore we got signed a little later, and that really hurt us. And but when we came out, people thought maybe we were jumping on the hair metal, glam rock, whatever you want to call it, bandwagon. But my glam influences, like I said, T-Rex and Mott the Hoople and the New York Dolls, and so I was into it. We were wearing makeup and whatever.
Yeah.
Before we'd ever seen Motley Crue or Poison or whoever, and it was shocking in our area in Florida, where everybody was listening to Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet.
Yeah.
And here comes the Roxx Gang.
I mean, let's be honest here, Kevin.
They thought we were transvestite junkies.
Let's be honest here, Kevin. I mean, like we, timeline. As far as talking timeline and thing, Roxx Gang was definitely around way before Poison. I mean, Poison didn't even come out to LA until 1985, and then they were glammed out as hell. But Roxx Gang, like what I always loved about bands like that was not just that you guys had great songs. I mean, you had a great look. I mean, it wasn't so much about the glam. You had great songs, but a lot of that stuff I grew up on. Motley Crue, Kiss, Poison. A lot of those bands that were real popular at the time, and like even today, you go to a Kiss show. What I love about Kiss is they kind of put on the ultimate rock show. It's much more than just guys in their jeans and T-shirts. If I wanted to listen to a record, I'd stay home.
Right, exactly. When I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to be a rock and roller.
Yeah.
I remember watching an episode when I was a little boy, like elementary school. Like I remember watching an episode of the Monkees on TV, and
sure.
And Davy Jones was getting chased all over the Eiffel Tower, and the girls caught up with him. And they ripped his shirt off, and I was like a little kid, and I was going, "That's what I want to do,"
Yeah,
hang out with a bunch of my friends at Monkey headquarters and ride around in a monkey mobile and get my clothes torn off by screaming. So I was always attracted to the lifestyle and the fashions of rock and roll and whatever before I even knew I had any talent in the area. And I always felt it was important to put on a show.
Yeah. But the thing.
It's rock and roll, man.
Yeah, the thing with like the Monkees, they're a little before my time, but I'll tell you, they really were such great actors at what they did, is that I remember thinking that, you know, how surprised I was come to find out. No, there's only two guys in the band that were actually real musicians. They had other people writing their music, but you know, I thought they were kind of a real band, and they became a band later on. But they all started out pretty much just as this little TV show.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how many of your favorite '80s bands had outside songwriters too. You know?
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, nothing against it, but I just always.
Then we had the bad. You know, you brought up when. Yes, we were out before a lot of those
bands, yeah.
Poison or Motley Crue, whoever. But even though we formed in '82, we didn't get signed till like '87 or so. Our album didn't come out till like, I don't know if it was late '88 or early '89.
I think '87 I was reading the first one.
I remember sitting in the studio in Hollywood, California, while my guitar player was doing solos, and I was out in the lobby watching MTV, and I see Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I had no idea. I mean, it was over before we even started.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, if we could have got signed, if we would have had the money to move to Los Angeles, we could have got signed a few years earlier. I think it really would have been a different story for Roxx Gang.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a funny story. Yeah, I interviewed the drummer.
As far as the Voodoo You Love goes,
yeah.
A lot of people don't realize because of the lineup that's pictured on the album. Actually, it's the lineup from Things You Never Done Before playing on that album, with the exception of two songs.
Okay.
Time Bomb and Thick as Thieves. But by the time the album came out, there was a brand new Roxx Gang, and those are the guys pictured.
Yeah. Wow.
That album was completed almost right after. When we came off tour for Things You Never Done Before, we recorded the songs that ended up on the Voodoo You Love, but grunge was in full swing by then, and nobody wanted to touch it, and finally found a home for it on Paris Records, like 5 years, I think, after it was recorded. Yeah,
you know, and it's funny you talk about MTV and that. I mean, you probably could flip by MTV and you wouldn't even know you're flipping by today. It's turned into like a reality TV network. They don't even play music on it. In fact, Mark Scott, the drummer from Trickster, was telling me like right when MTV was kind of dying,
you know,
MTV
was a great tool for bands.
Yeah.
You could accomplish if you could get your video on MTV and you could get it into rotation. That could do a strong rotation on MTV. Could do more than you could do for in a year on the road.
Oh, sure. And you know, Kevin, people don't even realize back in the day, MTV, I mean, the record companies, they were like paying, they were doing all kinds of things to get their artists on there, you know, but it was the music industry was very different back then. They didn't
I also think, though, on the downside, that MTV kind of contributed to the downfall of that 80s era because, like, I never really felt a kinship to a lot of the 80s, what they call hair metal bands or whatever.
Sure.
I'll say there was a couple of guys in Roxx Gang that had big hair, but it was in the 80s, everybody had big hair.
Sure.
Bono had a gigantic mullet, you know. Pop, it doesn't matter what genre of music. We get, you know, everybody says hair metal, but if you're in a pop band, you had big hair. If you were in, you know, it didn't matter.
Sure.
And I think things got, honestly, things got a little silly in the 80s. Some of the bands, in my opinion, if you're going to be a glam band, you have to be able to carry that look.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think there were a lot of bands in the 80s that had that look that couldn't carry it.
Yeah.
And their music was just bubblegum pop metal. And I didn't really associate myself. You know, and then you had ridiculous looking bands like Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
And you had guys starting to wear wigs like Kevin DuBrow and Don Dokken with hair extension. You know, all of a sudden, from album to the next album, all of a sudden they had long. I don't know. It was getting ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, people were buying into it too, and you know, it's kind of interesting, like you say. A lot of these bands, they took it to kind of extreme, but I do agree. MTV totally like kind of they did themselves in. I mean, I've had people tell me like MTV just they got like a new head of a company, and he decided we're not going to play any more of this '80s rock stuff. We're just going to do this grunge stuff because it's what's popular. And they
well, that happened at the radio stations too, man. Program directors were just taking all the what I don't know what to call it, but the '80s rock CDs and putting it in a box. We're not playing this anymore. This is what you're playing.
Oh yeah, and anyways, as I was saying, I once interviewed the drummer from Trickster, Mark Scott, and he was telling me like 1 week they had the number one video on Dial MTV, and then the next week they couldn't get it. They couldn't get any of their stuff played, and they were dropped and never played on MTV ever again. I mean, that's just one example there,
Right. See, I always considered Roxx Gang. If people ask me what kind of band it is, I know maybe some people don't find this a satisfying answer, but Roxx Gang is a rock and roll band. We're not hair metal. We're not glam metal. We're a rock and roll, maybe a glam rock and roll band.
Yeah, I mean, like you one of my all-time favorite bands you mentioned was Mott the Hoople. I mean, they were kind of over the top, but yet I think it worked for what they did. That's one of the most
tremendous respect for Ian Hunter. I think he's one of the best lyricists.
Oh, sure.
In rock and roll.
And I got to ask, were you ever much of a Slade fan?
Slade?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd much rather listen to Slade playing "Come On, Feel the Noise" than Quiet Riot.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Quiet Riot got they got famous off those two Slade songs, but I did a deep dive into Slade, and like they released a couple of years ago a greatest hits album, and I purchased it. I was like, I was shocked like how many hits they actually. What I mean is I didn't realize that there was more Slade songs that I actually have heard and was aware of, and it's amazing. Like their biggest hit ever was that Christmas song. Yeah.
I got a bunch of Slade albums. I dig them.
Yeah, and so let's talk about you. You mentioned that you guys were formed in '82, but like weren't able to get signed or anything released until about '87. So talk about once Paris Records came with the offer. How did you guys sign with them? Did they come to you? Did you send them like a demo or something?
Well, we had a producer, Carl Kennedy. You ever hear the band The Rods?
Oh, sure, Carl Kennedy. Yeah.
Okay, Carl Kennedy is the drummer for The Rods, and he's also produced Roxx Gang, Anthrax. He did a bunch of heavy stuff.
Oh, sure.
Anthrax.
Yeah.
I think he did a Urge Overkill. Anyways, we were starting to get some national attention. People were starting to write about us. We had a great live show. We had some, not to blow my own horn, but I think we had some solid songs,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Carl got some of our early demos, and he said, and we made a deal with him. He was going to come down and record an album-length demo. And the night before he came to Florida, the guitar player that I mentioned earlier that I formed Roxx Gang with, Eric Carroll, died in an accident.
Wow.
And Carl was super cool, and he said, if and when you get it together again, I'll be here. So we were a one guitar band at that time. It took two guitar players to replace Eric.
Wow.
Well, actually, we got this cat named Jeff Taylor, who's on Things You Never Done Before. He was a mutual friend of me and Eric's. And he's a great guy, great look. He just
fit the part. Yeah.
Carl came down, he said, you need to add an additional guitar player. We got Wade Hayes, the other guy on Things You Never Done Before. That kid is fucking incredible.
Oh, wow.
And I think if you've heard the lead solo work on Things You Never Done Before and
Sure.
Who Do You Love, if we would have had if we'd given a better chance and sold some more records, I think Wade would have been recognized as one of the guitar heroes of that era,
Yeah.
And so we recorded an album-length demo, which we later, in years to follow, we released it, called it Love 'Em and Leave 'Em. Paris released it.
Yeah.
And we shot that, and we had a couple of labels. They all came down to Florida to see us play. We do showcases. Virgin Publishing and Virgin Music were down the same night.
Wow.
And Virgin Publishing turned to Virgin Music and said, I don't care if you sign these guys or not, I'm signing them to a publishing deal.
Wow.
And
pretty good.
so then the record deal followed suit. And then Virgin, there was a lot of shortcomings being on Virgin because we were their first hard rock signing.
There you go.
And they really didn't know
what they were doing.
What they were doing with us. Yeah. But they did have a lot of money, and they pretty much gave us our pick of producers. We got Bo Hill. The band were fans of Kicks, and he had just done Kicks. He'd done Rat. Alice Cooper. We're fans of Alice Cooper. So we got Bo Hill, and then they got us Nigel Dick for our first video. You know, he did all the early Guns N' Roses videos.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were, they were really accommodating in that, as far as that goes. But as far as promoting us, they had a...
And see, people got to realize this is all pre-internet, obviously. I mean, if the internet was even around, it was like really in its infancy. I mean, so it was all about getting it promoted back in the day. I mean, it kind of still is, but I mean, it's a very different music industry these days. You know, since the album has been reissued and you've been doing all these interviews. I mean, have you been taking advantage of the internet, and what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, as I've revealed by letting you know that I watched the Monkees when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
My age is, I'm of an age where I'm not a tech head. I'm not an internet guy.
I got you.
I'm not a big computer guy, and we have people that do, we try.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think if the internet would have been around like in 1987 or 88, do you think you think the band might have blown up a lot more than what it did? I mean, it did pretty good back then, but
who's to say, man?
Yeah.
I just don't. I'll be honest with you. I know it might be self-defeating, but I don't have a big interest in that personally, in the promotion side of it. And as far as getting on the internet and everything like that, I'm a rock and roller, man.
I got you.
About that shit,
Yeah.
If we can get somebody else to do it for us,
sure. That's even better. Yeah.
I'm a writer and a performer, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I come from an era where rock and roll. I don't know. There was a lot less nerds in rock and roll when I was growing up.
I'm with you. I mean, I've been doing interviews, this way, like talking over the phone for years, and then one of my friends kind of encouraged me, hey, you should learn to do these Zoom interviews, and I'm just kind of barely learning how to do that. So I'm with you there. But let me ask you. So once Roxx getting started blowing up a little, did you guys ever, as far as doing live shows, ever get outside of Florida? Did you tour all over the place?
Oh yeah, we toured the States. We toured the UK.
That's pretty good. Yeah. And so I know you guys were pretty popular at the time in the US, but how did they react to you guys in the UK and that?
They loved us.
Yeah, I would think.
I think when we got off the plane, there was people there waiting for us, and we had sold out gigs all over the place. We did the London Astoria and sold it out.
Wow.
With Faith No More playing right down the street.
Yeah.
And we had a great time in England, and a lot of great fans there.
And see, I think
UK really took to Roxx gang.
I bet, and I would think too that see, if Roxx gang was just one of those bands like you were saying that just was all about getting all glammed up, and there was no substance, people wouldn't have reacted to you guys the way they did. I mean, if you put on any of those Roxx gang's albums, I mean, like you said, you're a pretty good songwriter. The song, you definitely got the songs, and it's interesting because you didn't have a huge, you weren't around for many years, but yet you guys in your own little way, you made your mark in the world, if you know what I mean. And that's why I think with this album, being reissued, people have kind of been reacting in a positive way. A lot of people are out there saying, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that band Roxx Gang. Oh yeah," and I know when I started seeing ads for a reissue, it was saying, featuring a bonus track like Magic Carpet Ride. I thought, oh, they covered the Steppenwolf song, but no, it's a great original tune.
Yeah.
And so I was curious, as far as the bonus track, why is that originally left off? They just thought, well, we had enough good.
I think when the Voodoo You Love was mixed and mastered, I believe that we weren't. I think that Magic Carpet Ride got kind of short-sheeted on the. We weren't happy with the mastering or the mix or something. Mm-hmm. But years later, I mean, in my opinion, it's such a great song.
Sure.
I thought it would be cool to. It was recorded in the same sessions.
Yeah.
And
I think
I wish that it would have made the original album, and I thought it would be an incentive for maybe.
Oh, sure.
Somebody who already owned it to pick it up again.
I mean, exactly the point I was going to make, because I'm a Kiss fan, like I said, and they just released this great Creatures of a Night box set. It cost a little bit, but I'll tell you what, it was worth it, because it got all these extra bonus tracks I'd never even heard before. And when you get something and you get all this extra bonus songs, it kind of, like you said, it gives you a little more of a value. It gives you more of an incentive to want to go out and buy it again, and I thought,
Sure.
like, hey, it's something, you're giving the fans a little something extra that wasn't there, wasn't there before. And so the other thing I want to ask you, Kevin, before we let you go, is I know eventually at one point, like you said, you kind of felt that the hair bands, or that era of the rock bands had kind of was kind of coming to an end. And I understand that's at the point where you kind of morphed into the Mojo Gurus. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I like to think that I have something that a lot of people in rock and roll seem to be in short supply of, and that's called integrity.
Okay.
And rock and roll is a young man's game.
Sure.
Okay? And if you're in a glam rock band, the window's even smaller.
Sure, yeah.
Okay? Nothing cracks me up more than, I see a lot of my peers that started like the same time as me, and they're still going, God bless them.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, a lot of these guys look ridiculous. Their hair's dyed black. They're still wearing, skin-tight pants with their belly hanging over.
Well, like even Carmine Appice recently decided he just finally let his hair, go gray.
Right.
Yeah.
So, living down here in Florida, I used to see all these old guys that dyed their hair black and slicked it back like Elvis, and I used to go, Jesus, let it go.
Yeah.
And so anyways, being in a glam band, you gotta just stop, man.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I grew up worshiping at the altar of guys like Alice Cooper or Steven Tyler in my high school days.
Sure.
But freaking Alice. I mean, he looks bad, man. Like, really? At his age? And Steven Tyler, God bless him.
Yeah.
It's impressive that he still can wear those clothes. Yeah. But should he be? He's still writing songs that are aimed at prepubescent girls. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
So I reached a point in my life where I thought, I've taken Roxx Gang as far as I want to take it. I think I'm getting a little too old to sing Too Cool for School or Scratch My Back,
Yeah.
And I still felt I had a lot of music in me. And we confused the shit out of everybody, because Roxx Gang put out an album called Mojo Gurus.
Yeah.
That was really the start of the Mojo Guru band. Then we played one night we took over a bar in St. Petersburg called the Voodoo Lounge.
Yeah.
It was my old lady's birthday, and the band played under an alias.
Okay.
We called ourselves the Mojo Gurus, and we did a lot of rockabilly and blues and old school, the kind of country that influenced rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had a blast, man, and I just felt like, man, this is where I should be going. I'm, at my age, I just felt, you get to an age where it's time to put away the eyeliner and mascara.
Yeah, I was curious at that show when you kind of were going by the alias of Mojo Gurus. Did anybody in the audience?
I watched my idols like Ian Hunter. He doesn't wear the platform, but he doesn't dress like he did in Mott the Hoople.
Oh, sure.
He's not still Ziggy Stardust.
Of course not.
Mick Jagger doesn't still wear sequence jumpsuits.
Yeah.
You gotta. I felt I wanted to keep making music, and I felt I was maturing. My musical tastes were maturing. I was getting I was exploring the roots of rock and roll.
Sure.
I was getting way more into blues and rockabilly and stuff, and rhythm and blues, and so then I said, that's it. I put Roxx Gang to rest and started the Mojo Gurus, and we totally alienated all our heavy metal Roxx Gang fans.
Yeah.
They didn't want nothing to do with the Mojo Gurus, but that's all right.
Yeah.
They've got the Roxx Gang albums,
and
I understand. When you grow up, music is attached to a sense of nostalgia.
Sure.
When you hear certain songs, it brings you right back to, these parties you went to, your girlfriends you had, first time you got laid, first time you got high, whatever.
Yeah.
And I understand it. There's people who don't want to let go of that. And whatever, God bless them, that's their thing.
Sure.
But I wanted to explore other avenues, even at the cost of losing a lot of our audience. But I had to make myself happy.
Yeah.
So the Mojo Gurus were born. We've had a half a dozen albums. And like I said, that's what was right for me, and that's what made me happy.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things with that. I mean, that's why Poison is one of those bands. They're able to go out, every other summer, play just the greatest hits, because it's all about nostalgia. I mean, I'll be honest, I love a lot of those Poison songs. I mean, they write songs that had great hooks. I mean, who can't get down to nothing but a good time? And I got to say, in regards to Roxx Gangs, that's one thing I always loved about your writing, Kevin, is you wrote songs that had great hooks, and people could sing to them, and they were fun songs, and and so as far as being having that gift to write like you do, was that something that took a while to kind of master, or did you kind of always have the ability to do that?
My mother was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
My dad taught at a certain point, too, for a little while. Became a lawyer.
Interesting. Right?
And they both instilled in me from a very early age the joys of reading. Mm-hmm. And then I think that helped me a lot because I was well read.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then I had until I was 9 years old, I had a Leave It to Beaver childhood. Okay. It was ideal.
Yeah.
At 9 years old, my mother was murdered.
Oh, wow.
And my whole life changed.
I bet, yeah.
And I had my brother and my brother Brett, who's been my manager all these years.
Oh, wow.
He's 4 years younger than me. And our life was shit for a good few years.
I bet.
I don't want to get into details.
Yeah, no, I can just imagine.
We had a very hard time.
Yeah.
And rock and roll,
saved,
and glam rock in particular, became an escape for me.
I bet.
I had
wow.
a friend who brought some albums to school one day, and I saw Mott the Hoople, the Mott album with all the way to Memphis.
Oh wow, yeah.
And all the way from whatever.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
I saw Ziggy Stardust, Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. I saw Lou Reed, Transformer, and these guys looked like they were from outer space.
Yeah.
And it was an escape for me from my own shitty reality.
I bet, yeah.
And I was driven from that point on. my goal in life was to couple my love of the rock and roll lifestyle with also I wanted to, hopefully, my big goal was to provide the same escape
for other people,
to some other kids in a shitty situation that I had been provided by rock and roll. That really motivated me. And when I get fan letters, or somebody tells me how much certain songs mean, I can't even tell you
what it means.
What it does to my heart. I mean, it might sound corny, but that's what drives me, and it just makes me so incredibly happy.
Yeah, and I imagine as a frontman, the singer, the guy that wrote most of those Roxx Gang songs, when you were up there on stage and you see people right in front of you singing the words back to the songs you wrote, that really has to hit you right in the heart.
Let me clear something up. I
Oh,
wrote all of the songs.
okay, yeah. I kind of figured you did. I wasn't sure though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling, man.
Yeah. And so just a few more questions.
I think that's why a lot of these guys go past their due date. They can't give up that feeling.
They can't give up that adrenaline. And when you guys were doing the show as the Mojo Gurus the very first time, was there anybody in the audience or the press that realized like the next day, hey, that's Roxx Gang, or did you have to tell everybody?
No, as a matter of fact, the two bands for a very short period of time actually coexisted.
Yeah.
And the Mojo Gurus would open up for Roxx Gang.
Oh, I love it. Wow,
We'd go back in the dressing room and change our clothes, and
double duty.
I remember at one club hearing somebody in the audience as I was walking the stage going, "He looks just like the singer in the other band."
Wow. That's my twin brother. Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, talk about dedication. I mean, by the time you got off the stage for the final time, doing a show like that, double duty, I bet you were exhausted.
Yeah, but rock and roll is a weird thing. Like, you don't feel it while you're on stage.
Yeah.
Because I've been sick as a dog with the flu, and like, I don't know if I gotta go. I gotta get up there. I can't. But I felt like I can't. I don't know if I can physically get through a show. And you get on stage, and it all disappears. And the minute you walk off stage, you collapse.
Yeah. It's all that adrenaline. And let me ask you, being that you are the guy that wrote all the songs, have you been able to kind of make a pretty decent living off the publishing, or is that not so good? I mean, you don't have to give me a dollar amount, but
I got royalties.
Yeah.
Coming in, but it's not enough for me
to live on.
I couldn't live just on that.
Yeah. And so that brings me to the final question, or final two. What have you been doing since Roxx Gang broke up, and have you ever had any interest to return to music or even do an album?
Well, like I said, I've made 6 albums, I think.
Yeah.
I think 6 with the Mojo Gurus, and I'm getting to a point now. I don't think I'll ever stop writing because I love just for my own personal satisfaction, but I don't know, sometimes I get a little depressed when I come up with something I think is really good, and then I think, but nobody's going to hear it. But, I
mean, being that you continue to write, would you ever consider putting out, because I imagine, like you said, you kind of put Roxx Gang.
Offers constantly. People I've had, like, financial offers, but plus tons of fans daily. Do a Roxx Gang reunion. Put out one more album. Roxx Gang is over.
Okay.
That was me in my youth.
But would you ever do like a Kevin Steele solo project or something like that?
Geez.
Yeah.
The business has changed
so
much.
Yeah.
And all the way from the business end all the way down to the venues.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was going, there was tons of big rock clubs and stuff.
Sure. I mean,
and they just aren't really.
I mean, I would just say this, Kevin. I mean, you should do whatever makes you happy. But I know that even to this day, like just the publicist you have, he he used to be Kiss. I mean, he working currently with as Blackie Lawless publicist. He's worked with Accept, Kiss. I mean, he's the one that did Kiss's first online website when they were first starting that. So you get a lot of important people behind you over the years, and I think you could still do something if you want to do so. There's always a hope of that. But final thing, I guess, just to wrap this up, what are you doing these days? Anything? Or just kind of living private life?
I'm living a private life. I just miraculously, I like keeping this private.
Sure.
I don't really like sharing health issues, but I just had a really scary operation and came through it like a champ, thank God.
Well, that's important, and we'll just end on this note. We wish you a speedy recovery, and it sounds like you're doing good, so I'm glad to hear that.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay, well, Kevin, it's been I really enjoyed talking to you today. If you ever like to do it again, let me know. But like I said, the interview will be going up in about a week. I'll let Mike know once I have a date for that. So thanks for doing this. You take care, my friend.
Well, let me say one last thing to your listeners.
Sure.
Yeah. Keep on rocking. Don't let anybody influence you as to what they think you should be listening to or what's cool or not. You listen to what you dig.
Yeah, and I want to just thank you, Kevin, for giving all your Roxx Gang fans and Mojo Guru fans great songs to listen to over the years. And I think unlike a lot of people, like you said, you kind of knew when to get out, and you did it your way. Kind of like Frank Sinatra, you did it your way. The rock and roll.
It's been my pleasure.
The rock and roll way.
All you fans who've got behind Roxx Gang over the years, thank you.
Okay, take care, my friend. Bye-bye. Have a nice rest of your day.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.